Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by Dr. Ik Ogbonmwan. How are you doing, Ik?
Yeah, all good, all good.
Good,
Nice
very
to
good.
nice to get on this.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's quite exciting. So I normally would introduce your job title. So I was going to say sport and exercise medicine registrar, but as of Monday, you're going to be a consultant. So officially, that's not been announced yet, but that's congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess it's a long it's a long journey essentially. I think for me, sports medicine, I've wanted to do it for quite a while. So like the amount of hoops you have to jump through essentially to finally get to this point where okay, I'm done now. No more exams, no more essays, no. So yeah, it's just a really good place to be really. And now it's just a case of looking ahead and trying to plan my week and trying to create the sort of job plan that works for me really, which is it's quite a nice place to be. Um,
Mm. So what is the to become a registrar to consultant? Just give us a quick overview of what the differences are.
so so I even going earlier. So the journey begins. So obviously we do all our foundation training, and so with sports medicine, there's a few different routes. I went the GP route. So I think I qualified as a GP in probably 2019, I'd say. And so I've been a GP for just under 5 years now, essentially. Um, and and basically, so do GP training, that's 3 years, and then I went straight into sports medicine training, which is a 4 year program that's run nationally by the NHS. There's essentially jobs across the country, typically Northwest, where I've been based. There's like one post that comes up each year. Other spots have a few more posts. Basically, a 4 year program. Then at the end of that, then you pass all the competencies, you get signed off, and then yeah, become a consultant. Which yeah, thankfully the GMC have sent me my emails and my letters. So yeah, it's all good now. So happy days.
Yeah, that's great. So going back then to why you wanted to get into this in the first place, then, so that you were saying before you've always had that in mind. Like, at what point did that start?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's probably medical school to be honest. So I think I think quite a lot of people tend to get into sports medicine quite late, but I think for me, I probably heard about it in third year medical school. So that would have been about 2000 2010, let's say. 2010. So yeah, before the Olympics, for London 2012. So I think I think then like there's a curriculum essentially. I had a look at that. And for me, I was just quite shocked that this was even a thing, that you could even be a sports medicine consultant. Like I was quite surprised that that even existed. Um, and basically, I think to be honest, I printed out the job spec like early days and just was just like, right, okay, what do I need to do? And just focus from there really. So yeah, over 10 years essentially, and just went through all the stages that I had to go through essentially. Um, yeah, and along that journey, so I went to London for a year, did the masters there, which was really good experience where I learned a lot in terms of theory and also just contacts and networking and just understanding really how it works from like an NHS and like private and elite sport perspective. And then after that, obviously I had to go through GP route, and then obviously I applied, and luckily I got the one job in the Northwest that year. And then that was it. Yeah, 4 years run through to consultancy. Yeah.
Very good. So where were you doing your doctor's training, and then where did you do the masters? Whereabouts in London?
Yeah, so I did my foundation training in Manchester. Well, officially Lancashire. So so in North Manchester, Preston, Chorley. So I spent 2 years there, which was good actually, but just the commute killed me. Like I was living in Manchester, and basically like back then, obviously you're doing nights, you're doing weekends. So basically every day you're on that motorway, at least like 6 days a week. And commuting, and like I think there's a few like hairy moments like post night shift, and like you're driving back, um, and like and you're just veering off, and I was like, yeah, this is not really, it's not sustainable. So after the foundation training, then I was like, okay, I need to get into this sports medicine. So I think I emailed around. I think currently Manchester has a master's degree in sports medicine, but it didn't exist when I was there. And the best course at the time was the London one, the UCL one. Um, and so F3, I don't know if you're familiar with the term F3. So it's like an unofficial year where you do your first two foundation years, and then a lot of doctors just take a year out essentially, just to either locum travel or do like a master's in my case. So yeah, basically I took it F3. I moved to London, moved my then girlfriend, now wife, to London. We lived in a one bed flat, like underground flat, paying I think like £1,400 a month. That was ridiculous.
Where
Um,
was that?
so that was in Kilburn. So yeah, and NW6. It was a great location to be fair. Like I literally lived next door to a gym. I lived about 100 meters away from a athletics track, which was open 7 days a week, which is unheard of in the Northwest because that just doesn't exist. Um, and yeah, like we had underground within 50 meters, overground within 50 meters. So like location wise, it was 10 out of 10, and perhaps that's obviously why they could charge what they could for such like an inadequate flat, really. Like it had damp, like we were just constantly fighting with the landlords and all the rest of it. But on the whole, like I really enjoyed it. Like I think it was really good to do the degree full time. I know a lot of people do it part time, but I think when you do it full time, you really immerse yourself in that the whole experience, and you can just basically just focus on learning. And because I think back then a lot of these sports medicine topics were completely new to me. I hadn't come across anything like that before, so I was literally learning everything from scratch then. And so to do it full time, and we could really focus and concentrate. And obviously in London, which was great, was a really good opportunity.
Yeah. So where were you from originally then?
So so Manchester, I grew up in Manchester. I went to school in Oldham. You know Oldham, don't you? Yeah.
Not like intimately, but I know it. I know of it.
You've heard of it. You've heard of it, yeah. So yes, Hume Grammar School for boys. I don't think it's called that. I think they've merged now. I think it's just Hume Grammar School. But yeah, it was a great school. Basically, 11 to 18, like secondary school. Then obviously sixth form attached to it. Yeah, it was really good experience. Like definitely had a good time there, and like really good teachers there who, rather than just teaching you like the basics, they really try to like impress on you like certain values and like lessons, and which obviously you take on throughout your career, throughout your life, which was really interesting. Especially when I speak to like other people in terms of different schools that they've gone to, and yeah, I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's great to hear like a really positive story about school. I know it's a grammar school, so it's you're paying for it. Were you paying for it, or was it a no fees?
Yeah, no, so yeah, well, yeah, my dad was paying for it. Yeah, um, I think back then the fees weren't as crazy as they were now, as they are now. But there were, I think it was still a few £1,000 a year, and obviously every year they just increased it. But I think looking back, I'd say it's less about the actual education. It's more about the opportunities and the people you're with, and like I said, the teachers and the sorts of lessons that they're giving you. I think from just a purely academic grades perspective, obviously you can achieve it anywhere really. But it's more about like the extracurricular stuff I think I really benefited from, and like just the people you're with, and yeah, I think yeah, and it's interesting, like obviously me like thinking about in the future families and all the rest of it, and thinking, oh, would I want to send my kids to a grammar school knowing the cost and how things are expensive now and things like that. So yeah, so quite yeah, possibly. I think I would definitely consider it. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of times about like the network and so on. So like being at school and then on the masters. So like what just explain that a bit more then, like how that's been helpful.
Um, so for the masters, for example, like obviously we did it full time. There's probably a good batch of us who were in the same similar situation. So all F3s, we'd all basically had the similar idea. We've all come across from different parts of the country. And basically, like a lot of those guys, I'm still in close contact with now. Like we've gone on to do other training together, whether it's ultrasound. We've gone on like we've become good friends basically. And we've worked together in terms of like sports teams, football teams, that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think just having friends in the industry, especially when you're new to it, is really useful. And you just feel a bit more relaxed, especially you come into like a close-knit SEM world where, like I said, everyone does know everyone. So if you're starting and you know a few people already, or you got your own little group or crew, if you like, it's quite nice actually. You just feel a bit more comfortable navigating um, that whole like, atmosphere, really. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, when we met up at the SEM event, a few weeks back, you could sort of see it's a tight knit group because it is quite a small group, isn't it? But you've got there's a really good network of people there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like quite a lot of the people who say when I was training, um, like I'm working with them now, for example, or people who I may have shadowed when I was more junior. Now I'm working alongside them, so it's a very small world, and that's why for me, like when the new generation are coming through, and like knocking on the doors, asking like, oh, can you help? Can you shadow? Like I'm always open for that because like I know how hard it was trying to get those sorts of work experiences and trying to get those sorts of placements, and it is really difficult basically, because you almost know what you need to do, you know where you need to be, but then no one's letting you in essentially. No one's letting you in the door. It just takes that one person just to let you in, get something on your CV, and then you can obviously then progress from there and then move forward.
So how did that work for you then? So you've done your GP training, but you wanted to get into sports medicine. Like what were the roles that kind of moved you forward in that direction?
Yeah, so I think with the sports medicine program, so one of the big things is commitment to speciality. So it's obviously basically as it says, how do you show commitment? And one of the big ones was obviously working and being involved in sports and events. So I think one of the big things I did, which helped a lot for me personally, um, was I don't know if you familiar with Natasha Beach.
I don't know that name, no.
Yeah, so she's got a company, like an events company called Sports Medics, and I think that's been going for a good five plus years, if not more. But basically, I started doing some events with her, and she runs some big events. Like she used to cover like Leeds Triathlon, like London Triathlon, Tough Mudder, some of these like Adidas events, some of like big events in London, like 10-mile races, open bike, road races, in the Midlands, like just a whole host of different events. And basically that, like going to those sorts of events, again, you're with other people who want the similar thing that you do, and you're learning and you're just getting that taste of it, but in like a safe environment where you're not like just the sole person in charge. You can just learn and work, but you're in like a comfortable environment, um, which was quite useful because then obviously then you quickly want to get into some sort of team sport. And in the Northwest, the easiest one to get into really, I think it always has been, is rugby league. Just the fact that there's so many rugby league teams, and the way the doctors work, basically it's very, what's the word, like, it's very rotational. So the doctors will come, will go quite quickly for multiple different reasons, and so it's quite easy to really get a taste of sports medicine, and see what, if you like that pitch side sort of, team sport work. And obviously, a sport like rugby, the amount of stuff you're seeing is incredible. Like, but even thinking back to some of the stuff that I saw or even did, you think about, actually, hang on, I probably shouldn't have done that. Having known what I know now, if you like, or things like that, which is really interesting. But I guess that's part of the journey, and that's why it's important to have, basically mentors or people who in that field who can guide you when you're on that journey, really. Because yeah, I don't think I really had that, as such, if you like. That there's people who I worked with, but having a mentor, having someone who's done the whole path, if you like, and then can really just guide you is a really useful, really useful.
Yeah. What was you? So you worked in rugby league then? Where did you start doing that?
So there used to be, a quite big business called, Bucket and Sponge, and essentially it was a GP based in Wigan who, like, I had a contract with the RFL to basically provide medical services for all, like, well, not all, but probably about a good 30-40% of the teams in rugby league. Some of them on like permanent, basis, and some of them are just like a fill-in sort of set basis. Because with these clubs, they struggle to find doctors, and obviously with all the concussion stuff which was coming in back then, the rules changed. Obviously, then you had to have a doctor every game, whereas before it was a bit more vague. Whereas obviously once all the rules changed, you had to have a doctor every single game, and so obviously these clubs were scrambling basically, and so obviously this GP came in and filled that void basically. And with that company, it was quite handy actually, because then basically I shadowed for a year, so a whole year just shadowing. Wasn't getting paid, was just basically learning and just observing him and just seeing how things are done from a rugby league perspective. And then obviously after that, you could then start taking on games and stuff, and just basically building your confidence and experience. And I think that's massively helped because I've left rugby now and I'm mainly working football, but having like once you've like managed like significant injuries in rugby, like football, there's nothing really that can really phase you, if you like. You've done the worst, if you like. Um, Whereas, yeah, with football, it's obviously bad things happen, of course, but yeah, not at the frequency, not at the severity of rugby. I'd say, from my personal experience.
Yeah. And then, so what was your first paid role?
I think it's, yeah, rugby league. I'm not sure which club it was, but yeah, yeah, I worked for quite a few different clubs. Rochdale Hornets, Swindon Vikings, Swinton Lions, Basically, yeah, quite a lot in that northwest region.
And how does that look then, like, sorry to interrupt, how does that look from a perspective? Like, are you just going in on match days? Are you part of the training, or?
Yes, so exactly. So all those were just match day covers. So basically, yeah, you just cover a match day, and then throughout the week, typically with those sorts of clubs, the physio would just run everything. All medical decisions would be run by them, like a physio-led department. And basically, they wouldn't involve the doctor at all, essentially. And then obviously once you do that for a while, you realise obviously that there's much more to sports medicine than just match day, because obviously that's very just reactive and almost like emergency care sort of role, whereas actual sports medicine actually is more about the performance side or the preventative side. So then I think my first ever job in like a proper club doctor role, if you like, was at Lee Centurions, where then you're actually having to like set up governance and you're setting up protocols and policies which just didn't exist before. And I got in around the COVID time, so navigating that was a minefield. And basically, yeah, every new thing, like you're creating things from scratch, like there's nothing to really go off. But it was really useful, challenging, but really useful, and just to get you into that mindset of being independent, of developing things and being accountable. I think, yeah, it was a really good experience.
And that was football always on the agenda?
I think, yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think I've never been a rugby league fan, if I'm being completely honest. Like I can't lie to say I'm a die-hard rugby league fan, watching rugby league every week. Whereas the sports that I was personally into was probably athletics, football, basketball. Um, and from a team sport, like a weekly thing, football really was the only sort of like sport doctor role that you could do is like every week, if you like. Athletics is more obviously events. Basketball, often they don't require a doctor, only at the maybe Olympic level. So trying to get into sports medicine as a young doctor, football was the one you wanted to get into, but it was the most difficult one, just because there could be more selective. Obviously, more people wanted to be involved naturally because of the draw of football and the whole thing around football, essentially. So I think that was difficult to break through, but obviously once you're in, then you're in, and then you can move through, essentially. Yeah.
So who were your sporting idols growing up then?
So basketball wise, obviously, like I was. I think my era was like the Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. I don't know how much you're into basketball. People like Karl Malone, John Stockton, like Utah Jazz. Those sorts of people from a basketball perspective.
The Dream Team. Have you seen that Dream Team documentary?
Yeah,
It's absolutely one of my favorite documentaries.
Yeah. And interestingly, back then, Channel 4 used to show basketball for free on TV. So you could actually keep up to date. Whereas now, like you're not watching basketball unless you're paying for a package or something. And so I hardly really keep in touch with it these days. I've only recently got something where I can access that NBA TV, so I caught a bit of the playoffs. But yeah, it's not. I'm no big basketball fan now at the moment, if you like. From an athletics perspective, back then, growing up was obviously you liked like Linford Christie, obviously like Colin Francis, those sorts of guys, British guys. But then obviously me growing up in Sale, we had like Darren Campbell, obviously achieving success, and obviously I got into athletics at Sale quite early as well, trying to follow in the footsteps. But then I think with athletics, when you see Usain Bolt running 9:56 or something, then you realise, right, this is probably not for me, this career. I'm like, let's focus on something where where you can excel essentially. But I still sprint as much as I can. But obviously, at my age now is just trying to protect your body as much as you can. With try to avoid hamstring injuries, which I tend to get every summer, basically.
What are your thoughts on Zarnell Hughes?
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I was there actually in Manchester at the National Champs. I think it was a few weeks back. The one where it was like completely
The
pouring.
rain.
Yeah, I think is it the Independent went with the biblical headline. Yeah, I was there, had the poncho on, trackside. I was surprised that the race went ahead. I was surprised that the athletes were up for it. Like fair play to them, honestly, because sprinters often they get the reputation of being divas. So I'm surprised none of them just like didn't just walk out. And the
That
old
was as bad as it could be, wasn't it? That rain was because I'm in Didsbury, 4 miles away, and it was like unbelievable.
that's it, thunder, lightning. We had it all. I think to be fair, the women's race did get delayed. I think they did send them back in because the water was interfering with the timing and equipment. But yeah, that was as bad as I've ever seen it. Yeah, it was a great day though, otherwise. But yeah, the weather wasn't the best. But yeah, Zarnell is on great form at the moment. Um, so I saw he broke the 200 recently in London. But it's interesting with the British athletes. Like you go to all these domestic championships, and obviously you see all these great times, but then you put them on an international audience, and unfortunately, there's still a long way to go for the UK guys to be really challenging for that number one spot in the world. I think the talent is just so high across the world. Like the American collegiate system, Jamaican sprinting has always been there. Like it's just really difficult. And interesting, I often think if you're a talented athlete coming through, there's a quite a low probability that you'll end up being a sprinter in the sense that if you're good physically, you'll get pulled by one of the other sports, often football. There's quite a few people I know who went to my school who were like 10-5, 10-4 runners. And basically, obviously, they played football as well. And before you know it, they got snapped up by a football club. Because obviously, that's financially, it's a more secure future, if you like.
Mm.
I think the funding model is I think athletics they just struggle really. There's just not enough money, I think. So if you get your funding from UK Athletics, and then obviously then it's just you're on your own to get your sponsors, and some do better than others, but some people struggle compared to football. You're signing, you're getting an academy what age 8, age 9, and then before you know it, age 16, you've got an RS3 in the car park.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
had a chat with Kelvin Giles a few months back, and he's heavily involved in athletics development over here, and he was saying exactly the same thing. He said that the infrastructure previously was so amazing for athletics, and it's just gradually deteriorated. He was quite damning on the setup of it, which was interesting to hear from someone because he's a massive proponent for getting people doing various activities, being physically fit.
mm.
Whereas football is a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? Really, because everyone's in an academy now.
Yeah, it's just such a shame, really, because in an ideal world, athletics would be like my dream sport, if you like, dream job, if you like, but it just doesn't really exist in Manchester, really. whereas football, it just dominates it. So especially for sports medicine, for example, if you want to practice at that highest level with the resources, like there's not many sports that can match football in terms of the resources that they have, and so it just is like a big magnet. You get pulled to it eventually, whether you want to work in football or you're not or you don't.
Yeah. So what are some of the jobs that you've had in football?
So I started doing some academy work for Bolton Wanderers. And then from there, I managed to get a few random first team match day covers for teams like obviously Bolton Wanderers, Preston North End, Oldham Athletic, Rochdale FC, Shrewsbury Town, and then obviously you do a few like regular game day, like almost like bank work, if you like, just covering games, covering matches for all these different clubs. And then moved on to Burnley Football Club in the academy. And then actually having more of a role in that, a bit more of the covering clinics and more of a day-to-day sort of role, just not just covering a game. Actually doing clinics there, covering training, looking after the athletes more during the week. And then during my sports medicine training, I got an opportunity to work at Man City Football Club, which obviously you can imagine is probably at the top of the tree in terms of resources from a sport, let alone football. So that was a great experience. And then following that, started doing some work with England, again as a bank doctor. And then recently just taken on one of the team doctor roles. So with the women's under-17s team, which will officially start from next month, which I'm quite excited about, to be honest, because it's a World Cup year, and I think the World Cup got announced that it's going to be in Dominican Republic, so that's quite exciting, to be honest. Well, which obviously we need to qualify for that first, but I think yeah, it'd be pretty interesting if we go all the way with that one. So yeah, I think football's good, really. I think again with the resources, you can just do things quickly, do things like with enough staff. You're not like struggling. You're not. Whereas in some other sports, you're not really quite doing the job that you'd want to do, and your hands are tied, and it's often because of resources. Basically, there's just the money's not there, the people are not there. Whereas in football, often, especially at the bigger clubs and bigger organisations, everything just works quite well. So it's quite nice to see when things do work, and how smooth everything can be. But then obviously that costs money and someone has to pay. So
Yeah.
cool.
And then for you, then you've got various different jobs. You can be a consultant now. How do you manage your own time in terms of like how many places are you currently working at? Like, what's an ideal calendar for you?
So 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 obviously my last year of registrar this year, my week was Monday, Tuesday, I was working at the UK Sports Institute. So that's based at the MIP in Manchester. And that was basically predominantly with British cycling, which again was a great experience, another elite performance setup, who are essentially quite well resourced as well. So again, practicing to a high level. And then obviously with UK Sport, they have a multi-sport role, so smaller sports which they can't fund a doctor full time, or then you would like almost cross cover when you need it. So through that, I was working with a number of different sports like Taekwondo, netball, squash, para swimming, that sort of thing. So that was my Monday and Tuesday. Wednesdays, I was doing some community MSK, which basically I set up a service in Staley Bridge, basically like a one-stop shop MSK clinic offering like ultrasound-guided injections and like SCM care basically, which otherwise they'd have to have referred to like a second provider and wait 6+ weeks to be seen before any investigations or interventions were done. So being able just to get GPs refer patient directly to you, you see them, you scan them there and then, and if needed, you can offer an intervention as well. It's quite nice to have that one-stop shop package. Thursdays as at Connect, and Fridays as at Withington Hospital in Didsbury, again, which is just another like a tier 2 community MSK sort of setup. And then weekends was Burnley Football Club basically. So that's pretty much my week this year essentially. So it's a full week, and you go, well, where's your free time? And you don't get much free time if you be honest. But I guess when your week's that full, you almost have to be really precise with your time and trying to fit things in that you want to fit in and prioritize what you want to prioritize. So like for me, like gym, sprinting, that sort of stuff, I always made sure I train 5 times a week, and I've kept that up for the past 10 years, if you like. But just because I feel that for me that's a priority. So it's one of those things. If it's an important thing for you, you manage to fit it in. But I think some of the other things, like just like big trips away, sometimes with friends, you may miss a few things like that, unfortunately. But I think I've got the balance pretty okay. I think like I haven't missed any like weddings or anything like that or anything drastic. It's quite flexible on the whole, I'd say. Yeah.
And did it make it better or worse that you're now married to an SEM as well?
No, I think it's a positive thing in the sense that obviously Liz knows what the job entails. She knows, she gets it, she fully understands. So you're not trying to have that argument with someone who doesn't get what you're trying to do or what you're trying to achieve. So I guess the goals are aligned, if you like. And even just having someone who's knowledgeable to discuss cases, to bounce ideas off, is quite useful. And also she has strengths that I don't have. So I mean, often like for the women's health stuff, working on like women's sport, you can ask your wife for, well, what would you do with that female patient, and obviously that's one of her particular interests. So yeah, it's quite useful. I think yeah, it works quite well. I think as long as you make sure that you plan time for each other, you do the basics like that, and obviously you get in your holidays in, and yeah, I think it can definitely work. But you do have to be organised. You can't just hope things will happen. When you're that busy, you have to book in the time, otherwise it'll get filled, sort of thing. I think. Yeah, you have to get that time blocked out. It's important.
Yeah, and how was last season at Burnley then? It was obviously an amazing season for the club.
Yeah, it was great, really. I think so. I was with Burnley when they're in the Premier League under Sean Dyche, and then obviously going down, and then Vince came through, and there's obviously he's had a fantastic impact. I think obviously the club would have hoped they would have bounced straight back up, but it definitely wasn't guaranteed. And to achieve that in that fashion, I think it was incredible. And yeah, he's done a good job. He's got a good reputation amongst not just obviously the players and the coaches, but the staff as well. He's a likable guy essentially, which is quite nice really. I think personally I haven't had much to deal with him because I don't do that much work with the first team, if you like. But on the instances where, I mean, you've met him, you've spoke to him, yeah, he's a great guy, yeah.
What about, what's it like working with Duncan Robertson?
Duncan, yeah. So interestingly, like I don't we don't actually work together, if you like, because our days often I'm either working on a day that and he's not, if you like. So we don't like. I've seen him a few times when we've both been together at the club. But I but yeah, Duncan's an interesting guy. He's obviously, if you listen to some of his stories, he's done everything. He's seen everything. He's traveled the world, obviously with all his military background and stuff. So yeah, he's a really interesting guy. Great ultrasound as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, his character, definitely a character. So then for you then, like what is your, do you have like a goal, or like, I suppose two questions on that. What's your goal for things? But also, do you have your own like drivers of what you want to be involved in? Do you have your own like personal mission statement of what you want to be doing?
Yeah, I think for me, I think I'm pretty sure that I'd actually let's be careful. I think realistically, I probably want some sort of balance in terms of my career, in terms of my portfolio, if you like. So a mix of MSK, whether that's NHS, whether that's private, um, elite sport, football. I think I really enjoy football, so I definitely want to carry on doing some sort of football. And I think if possible in the future, I'd probably want to take on some more athletics sort of roles. So I've covered quite a few competitions domestically, but I think yeah, it'd be nice if there was a bit more of a athletics role, especially in the Northwest. And maybe that's something I might look to really push, if you like. But I guess with most sports doctors, it's that sort of portfolio. So you're just trying to get that balance where um, you're being challenged in your job, you're learning, you're having jobs which give you that fun and that interest, but then also equally importantly, financially, there's jobs which obviously pay as well. And just trying to get that balance right, because you can get positions which obviously they're great, they're fun, but they may not pay, or vice versa. Like they might pay well, but you're miserable doing them. So it's trying to get that sort of mix where you've got just a good week, which everything complements each other, but you're still learning, and importantly, you're with a good team of people, really.
Yeah, and like, what would your advice be for other people that are thinking of getting into, whether it's being a doctor or into sports medicine in general?
I think being a doctor now is it's challenging, like with the fees and the student loans now. I think you have to really want it now. I think you can't be on the fence, if you like, just because financially. I think guys and girls are coming out with, I think that's like £120,000 I saw recently on Twitter. So if you're not, if your heart's not in it, you can't be getting into that sort of debt. It doesn't make sense. Specifically, I think if you want to do it, there's opportunities. Just get involved, reach out to people, and just start building your CV. Like do all, as well as doing all the basics of so everybody wants to be a football doc, everyone wants to work at all these fancy teams, but make sure you're doing the academic side, the research, getting the publications out, doing the audits, teaching presentations, the physical activity side of things as well. Just trying to make sure you've got the full balance right. Often really good candidates, like I've seen it recently. They've had a significant amount of elite sport experience, then they don't get the job, the training pathway job, because they haven't done the other stuff. So it's just being mindful that the elite sport experience in terms of this NHS training program is only going to take you so far, because at the end of the day, it's an NHS program. They want to create NHS jobs essentially. So if all you've done is work in football teams at the weekend, then it's not great for the NHS really. So you're just trying to make sure that you're ticking everything off really, and you're getting that whole thing.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Very good. And then last question, who are the people that have been most influential in getting you to where you are now?
Oh, okay, good question. So I'd say one person early on who almost we've talked about people giving you a break. There's a guy called Joseph Lightfoot. I don't know if you've heard of him, but interestingly, so he was a doctor who actually left medicine very early. I don't think he actually worked as a doctor, but he did medical school, and then just quickly realized this wasn't for him. But interesting, around that time, he was doing quite a lot of sports medicine and lots of physical activity. And basically, he obviously, when you're in that sort of position, you email everyone. Lots of people just don't reply, and it's quite harsh. It's quite harsh, real, but you have to obviously keep on pushing. And he's one of the guys who's like, yeah, I'll have a chat with you. Just basically took time out of his calendar. It was like, right, yeah, come to my gym, spend an hour. What's your plan? Where do you want to be? How can I help you? And actually put me in touch with contacts with the rugby league, where I got lots of my earlier pitch side experience, that sort of thing. And basically, I say he was probably the main guy who opened the door for me. Interestingly, he's not actually working much in sports medicine at the moment, but yeah, he was. I probably put him as the key person at the start of my career. And then later on the lines, obviously, we've got lots of great consultants in the Northwest who obviously have learned a great deal from. I think too many to name really, but I think earlier on, yeah, I think he was really helpful basically, and it's having that person who can almost give you that break, or give you maybe not even that break, maybe just giving that time, just down with you and talk.
And you mentioning, Liz, your wife, she performs at a very high level in terms of what she was doing. So just talk to me about your experience of your training and how Liz is impacted.
Yeah, I think to be fair, it's just quite inspirational in a strange way, in the sense that I think often like people just limit yourself in terms of how much you think you can do. I think like when I started training, I might train 2 or 3 times a week, and I think, okay, hang on, that's probably enough. I need to allow myself time to recover after each session, and then I'll watch her. She'll be doing 7, 8, 9 sessions in a week, and I think like, hang on, maybe I could do a bit more. And it's just all that sort of that mindset, and basically it's just trying not to limit yourself, and it's so important, and not just in fitness, I think in lots of different things, and just being aware and that you can actually do more than you think you can, and just trying to get that inspiration from other people and looking around, seeing what other people do, and think, well, actually, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. Like that's fine, and that sort of thing, and yeah, it's just quite handy, and it was just almost, I guess, it caused, yeah, I just stepped my game up, if you like, which is good for me and good for my health as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. No, it's yeah, it is. Sometimes you just watch people and you're just like, God, that's just, yeah, no, that is inspirational.
Yeah.
Top man, look, appreciate that. Let's yeah, keep in touch, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, perfect.
Good man. Cheers, IK. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye bye.